We are less than 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. This recent report that the Arizona Cardinals are open for business to trade the number 3 draft pick. But the question on the table today is the cost of trading up. Is it really that much when we're talking about a potential franchise quarterback, or is that just the price of doing business? Well, let's break this down a little bit. I've made it clear that I want the Vikings to take a quarterback in this year's draft to be the succession plan because you have a quarterback in Kirk Cousins under contract for 1 more year. So you already have the piece in place there to let your young quarterback sit for a year under the tutelage of Kevin O'Connell. If you're going to trade up with the Arizona Cardinals, it's going to cost a little bit. It's going to cost you the first round pick this year as well as in 24 and 25. And one other piece. That other piece could be this year's 3rd round pick, next year's 2nd round pick, or a player like, say, Daniellehunter, for example. To be clear, I don't want the Vikings to trade Daniellehunter necessarily, but the fact that he's only going to be making $5 million in cash this year is going to count $13 million against your cap. We might be at an impasse where the best value that Daniellehunter can return for is to be part of a trade. Considering all of the moves that they've made thus far about shorter-term deals and younger players around 24, 25, 26, it just might not be in the cards for Daniellehunter. But we'll see. Well, if you trade up and you're wrong and that guy ends up being a bust, you've crippled your franchise for years. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. Remember when we traded for Herschel Walker? Didn't have 1st round or 2nd round picks for 3 years. Still went to the playoffs after Denny Green got here. It didn't cripple the franchise. So you can survive, even if you make a bungle of a trade and it doesn't work out the way you want it to. But let's look at some more recent vintage. Since 2015, when Rick Spielman had his crown jewel of a draft where he got Trey Waynes, Eric Kendricks, Daniellehunter, and Stephon Diggs, up until Justin Jefferson and Christian Darrisaw, what have we gotten out of our 1st round picks? Well, let's go through the list. Laquan Treadwell, 16 games with Sam Bradford, Mike Hughes, Garrett Bradbury. Up until Justin Jefferson in 2020, those were the 4 consecutive 1st round picks that we've used. Yes, Garrett Bradbury got a 2nd contract, but it was well below market value. They didn't pick up his 5th year option, and it was because he probably couldn't have gotten anything better else. But other than that, we wasted a pick on Laquan Treadwell. We basically wasted a pick on Sam Bradford and basically wasted a pick on Mike Hughes. Now, Lewis Cine, we're going to give an incomplete to. Guy got injured. He's got the right to come back, the right to improve. So we'll leave that one off the table. But for anybody who wants to tell me, you can't trade up to the top 3 to get whichever quarterback is left over between Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Anthony Richardson, because if that guy goes bust, we're sunk for years. Really? You're going to tell me right now that if I offered you whatever franchise quarterback was there under the tutelage of Kevin O'Connell, Laquan Treadwell, Mike Hughes, and Garrett Bradbury, plus, some ancillary stuff, for the potential of a franchise quarterback, you wouldn't do that deal? Now, yeah, that's cherry picking. Of course it is. All right, let's go back to another Spielman draft where in 1 year we got Xavier Rhodes, Cordero Patterson, and Sharif Floyd. Xavier Rhodes was great. Was best corner in the league for a couple years. But Sharif Floyd gave us basically nothing. Cordero Patterson, nice kickoff return guy, and occasionally ran the ball well and occasionally caught some passes. But realistically, if I offered you those 3 players that we took in that same 1st round draft for a franchise quarterback, potentially, you going to tell me that's too much? To me, it's not. This is only a move made if there is somebody that the Vikings have identified as their guy, that Kevin O'Connell has said, yes, I can work with that guy in my system. I can develop him. I can shake out the flaws, and we can win a Super Bowl with this guy, or at the very least, get further than the wild card round or the divisional round of the playoffs. I'm not saying you do it just to do it. I'm saying it under the guise that they have said, yes, we've identified him, and we can win a Super Bowl with that guy. But it really isn't that high of a cost when you really break it down. Realistically, if we played this out, this quarterback would sit behind Kirk Cousins and be under the tutelage of Kevin O'Connell for a year, would take over in 2024. And if Kirk Cousins continues to do what he's done and the defense gets a little better under Brian Flores, instead of losing in the wild card round, we make it to the divisional round, and maybe, if we're lucky, the NFC Championship game. So the 2024 pick's going to be somewhere in the mid to late 20s. That's not giving up a whole lot. But if you turn it over to the quarterback in 2024 and he's an abject failure, you might miss out on a top 10 pick 2 years from now if you make this deal and turn it over to the quarterback in 2024 that you draft now. That's not that big a risk. And as I said, take your pick of the litter. Laquan Treadwell, Mike Hughes, Garrett Bradbury, 16 games, and Sam Bradford. That's One example of what it could potentially cost you. Yes, during 2024 and 2025 round ones, we're going to be sitting as Vikings fans watching the draft go by because we wouldn't have a pick unless we made a move and traded a player and got back into the first round. But for the opportunity to finally get a franchise quarterback, one that we picked, one that we believe through our evaluations is going to be somebody that can work well with Kevin O'Connell and hopefully get us beyond the wild card round of the division round of playoffs, the cost really isn't that high. Now, to be clear, one more time, I'm sold on this idea under the guys that they are sold on this idea. If they made up this move for any one of the top three, I'd be happy. Wouldn't do this for Will Levis and certainly wouldn't do it for Hendon Hooker. But at the end of the day, it's time to take a risk. And let's not be scared off by the idea, well, if this quarterback ends up busting out, we wasted 3 first-round draft picks. That's the price of doing business. When you are always going to be a team that refuses to take a year off and rebuild. We're always going to try to be competitive. Then at some point, you got to pay that price. I think it's worth the risk because I trust Kevin O'Connell and I trust Kwesi Adofo-Mensah that if they were to make this move, it's because they believe they can find a guy that can lead us to a Super Bowl. But that's what I think. Tell me what you think. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you kindly for joining me, and skol to the next episode.